Welcome to Vacation by Rail's Rail Insider, the show about global rail travel experiences and remarkable destinations around the world. I'm your host, Todd Powell. In this episode, we continue exploring Switzerland with an excursion to Mt Rigi, Switzerland's Queen of the Mountains and home to the Mt Rigi Railway, the oldest mountain railway in Europe. With the Mt Rigi Railway celebrating its 150th anniversary this year, there's even more reasons to take an excursion to Mt Rigi, including the return of steam locomotive number 7, which made the maiden voyage up Mt Rigi 150 years ago. Centrally located in Switzerland and an easy day trip from Lucerne, Mt Rigi offers spectacular views, cog railways, cable cars, and a wide variety of year-round activities. To give us an insider's look at Mt Rigi, we are pleased to welcome Johann Fulks, head of international sales for Mt Rigi. Born in the United States, Johann has lived in central Switzerland since 2002 and obtained dual USA and Swiss citizenship. Johann has spent the majority of his career developing international travel products and programs for the US and Canadian traveler and uses his free time to explore his alpine mountain neighborhood of central Switzerland and his home mountain, Mt Rigi. Let's welcome Johann Fulks. Johann, thank you for joining me today to talk about Mt Rigi. With Mt Rigi's 150th anniversary coming up in 2021, there's no better time to learn about this spectacular Swiss mountain experience. Why is Mt Rigi considered the Queen of the Mountains?
Well, a lot of people actually thought, and I admit it was the case for me as well. Before I started working at Rigi, I always thought it was about Queen Victoria and when she took her entourage up there in the mid 19th century, and that certainly is played into the myth of Rigi being Queen of the Mountains. But the term goes back to the 15th century when the local Swiss humanist Albrecht von Bonstetten coined the Latin term Regina Montium, which translated means Queen of the Mountains. So that was quite some time ago. And then I think when Queen Victoria came, it sort of gained momentum. And interesting, and actually I should say that, when Queen Victoria came up, that was pre-railways. So she was going up there with donkeys and carts, and there was a whole local, hundreds of local people that were sort of supporting that effort. But another interesting tidbit is a linguistic tidbit, and that is that in German language, the word for mountain, Berg, is a masculine word. So you'd usually say der Berg, but for whatever reason, and I'm not sure of the sort of etymological background to that, but Rigi's always been referred to as Die Rigi, which is female gendered. So that's also kind of fed into this notion that it's a Queen of the Mountains, or a sort of female gendered mountain, if you will.
Yeah, it's interesting. It seems like all the things you talk about just feed into that whole notion of Queen of the Mountains, and obviously a rich history there. When you talk about Queen Victoria, and you talk about the tie into language, for example, and going back to you talk about the 15th century. When you talk about Mt Rigi, that history even goes beyond that. It goes to the railway experiences themselves at Mt Rigi, right? I mean, when you
absolutely,
yeah. And so, why don't you talk a little bit about the railway experiences available on Mt Rigi and how the history kind of connects all that together.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, Mt Rigi is in fact the oldest cogwheel railway in Europe. So the railway as such, the railway experience is really one of our unique selling points. So the cogwheel, we have two different cogwheels. One ascends from the south-facing slope of Mt Rigi down to Witznau, which is right on the lake, on beautiful Lake Lucerne. And then the other cogwheel ascends from a town called Goldau. So there's actually an SBB, or Swiss rail train station, called Art Goldau, and that's on the north face of Rigi. And so actually when the railway was founded in 1871, they were founded as competing railways. So there was the Art Goldau train, which was coming up from north face. That actually was founded second, and the Witznau one was the original one. And they were two different companies. So they were actually competing against each other. Now we sort of operate as one company, but in those days there was stiff competition between the two lines. And then in addition to that, we've got a cable car that comes from another lakeside town called Vegas, and that goes to Kaltbad. So Kaltbad is actually the part of the mountain. It's not all the way at the summit, but it's part of the mountain where you've got it's permanently inhabited. So there's a little settlement there. There's a village there, and that's actually where a lot of the spa facilities on Mt Rigi are located as well. And then there's another another sort of gondola cable car that goes from a place called Chebel to Rigi Scheidegg, which is a little bit further east along the high plateau of Rigi. And that means, effectively you can, when people come to Mt Rigi, whether it's on a Swiss travel pass or whether it's just on a day ticket, they've got that ability to hop on and hop off and get on different modes of transport. So I think that just makes it really exciting to come a different way than you're leaving, and combine different modes of transportation and really sort of spice it up. In addition to that, we've got a lot of, because of our historical legacy, we've got a lot of historical railway experiences. So in the summer and the warm weather months, we're operating a lot of steam locomotive departures. And then we've got, a very large selection of historical rolling stock, Victorian era saloon carriages. And those can be chartered, and we do all sorts of special experiences in those as well. So it's the railway is one of the real stars of the show, if you will.
Yeah, and it's interesting when you talk about at one point the railways competing. That seems like kind of like a worldwide phenomenon, right? A couple of different rail lines, and then they fiercely compete, and then over time they've come together, and then that history. And I always tell people, when they think about what's it, talk about rail travel, and one of the things I always find so interesting about rail travel is that it really is living history, particularly when you talk about these vintage carriages and steam locomotives. I mean, there's really, it's such a unique way to really live history in the present day. And with the history, like you said, of Mt Rigi being the oldest mountain railway in Europe, I mean, it really is a great opportunity for people who enjoy rail travel or maybe are rail enthusiasts to get to really kind of be able to touch the history, to be a part of that history. Once people are on top of Mt Rigi, what activities are available, and what can people expect?
Yeah, so I think the first thing I would mention is that Mt Rigi is open 365 days a year. So that is, stems from the fact that we are formally integrated into the public transport network. There are living communities on the mountain that need to be serviced. You've got kids that are traveling down to go to school in the valley, and then taking the cogwheel up each evening. I mean, talk about a cool commute to school.
Absolutely.
And yeah, so I think that that the fact that it's a year-round railway servicing this living community, I just opens this possibility for so much to do. I mean, I always say it really is a living mountain, and that really feeds into the amount of experiences and the different types of experiences that people can do up there. And because of this hop on, hop off aspect of the railway, I mean, it is as you'd expect a railway to be. There's platforms and there's trains to get on and off, and that's part of the experience, is that people can really come and go as they please. They can combine. Maybe they want to get up, take the cogwheel part of the way up, and hike a segment, and then hop back on and then take it the rest of the way to the summit. Maybe have lunch, and then take the cable car down. They have that opportunity to customize it, and I really think that lends itself to combining experiences into the sort of whole Mt Rigi experience. And in terms of the actual types of activities, I mean, there's the year-round aspect of the mountain really means that you can do hiking and walking pretty much at any time of the year. It's probably maybe a little bit more intrepid in the winter months when there's snow on the ground, but that can be aided by snowshoes. snowshoes allow you to get out into terrain and access parts of the mountain that you otherwise wouldn't be able to get to. We can do horse-drawn carriages. There's the spa and relaxation is really really a big aspect of the experience on Mt Rigi. And another way to look at Mt Rigi is, I always say this, it's more of a high plateau. So when you think of your typical mountain having a summit and maybe a lookout platform, and it's kind of really hemmed in at the top, Mt Rigi is kind of the opposite of that. You get up there and there's vast expanses of space and really this high plateau. So it really lends itself for exploration, and I think a lot of people will really kind of crave that coming. Certainly now, I mean, we're all kind of locked down and in various stages of lockdown, and really just kind of itching to get back out there. And I think that'll be an interesting aspect when people coming out of this, that I think a lot of people will really crave. I think the food aspect is the culinary experiences on Mt Rigi are really interesting selling point as well. I mean, we've got working alpine dairies on the mountain, so people can come and visit the dairy. They can make their own cheese. They can taste the cheese if they're not, maybe not into the whole cheese making aspect. They can still taste it. There's all sorts of different mountain inns that cater to different sort of tastes. And I mean, a lot of the food around here is quite hearty, so you get things like Alper macarona, which is like an alpine macaroni. So it's like mac and cheese with like a real Swiss twist to it, which I really like. We do things like three courses, 3 hosts. So that is, you'd actually do a different course. You'd have 3 different huts, and you'd either snowshoe or hike in between them, and you'd take a different course at each of those huts or restaurants. So you'd have your starting course at one place, you'd have your main course at another, and then you'd have the dessert at a third. So that's quite a popular program that we do on the mountain. We actually have a really interesting Michelin-starred restaurant on the mountains called the Edelweiss Kräuter Hotel, and that's their restaurant actually is called Regina Montiums. So that's referring back to the Queen of the Mountains, and they do a kind of farm-to-table concept where they try to grow as much of their herbs and fruit and vegetable in their own garden as they can, and the rest they source from the Rigi itself. And if they can't source from the Rigi, maybe it's from one of the surrounding communities. And I've been told by the lead chef there that the only thing that they import there from outside of Switzerland is the coffee, because that's one of the few things that is, of course, exceedingly difficult to grow in any way, shape, or form in the Alps. But yeah, it's a great. I've eaten there on a few occasions. It's a great spot. In winter, I mean, winter you can do everything from snowshoeing to sledding to winter walking. So winter walking might sound a little bit scary to people that for the sort of uninitiated, but it's really quite mellow. I mean, we have snowcats that will go out and prepare these hiking trails essentially and make them suitable for winter walking. So that's a very popular thing to do. We also have a small ski area. And Rigi, quite often in the cold winter months, is you'll have hot clouds down below in the valley, and what's so gratifying on a day, and we've had so many of these days recently, is the valley is completely socked in, and maybe at about 800 or 900 meters is where the clouds will be situated, and then everything above that is just bluebird and sunshine and amazing. So I think Rigi is great on days like that, and that's the type of weather you get on Rigi more often than not, especially in the winter months, but sometimes also in the sort of autumn. And then, yeah.
It really just, I mean, it sounds like there's so much to do, and it's such a year-round destination, and it's incorporating all of those elements that people are looking for now, just as a trend in travel, I think, generally, right? Right now, we have obviously people looking for these outdoor spaces, and you talk about the Plateau. I imagine that allows for hiking for all sorts of levels, right? Just moderate, easy walks to people who want maybe something a little bit more challenging. But
yeah, for sure. I mean, it's whether you really want to storm the peaks or just do kind of a mellow walk. I mean, it's there really is something for everyone when it comes to hiking or walking. I mean, hiking always kind of conjures up that term of, okay, I need to get my hiking sticks. I need to make sure I have the right footwear. But it's totally possible just to do mellow walks, and for any length really, and for any ability level.
Yeah, and then the other thing I really like is the 3 courses with the 3 huts, and you walk. I mean, that's like ideal, right? It's first of all, it's local, right? So it's like like you said, the farm to table. But then you're also when you're doing these hikes, how great is it to, like, I'm going to have a course and then I'm going to walk it off a little bit, right? So then I'm going to hit the next place so that I can, really feel good and ready to have another course. I mean, it seems like a ton of fun.
Yeah, for sure. Kind of earning your courses, and sort of indulging in the next delicacy at wherever the hike takes you.
Yeah, that's super fun. So, we talked about the history of Mt Rigi, and now with 2021 being its 150th anniversary, how's Mt Rigi going to celebrate this milestone?
Yeah, so believe it or not, as I mentioned a little while ago, it is the first cogwheel. The cogwheel technology as such was patented by Nicholas Rickenbach, who was the founder of Mt Rigi Railways. And like so many entrepreneurs and inventors, I think he struggled to get his idea through, and there were a lot of people that just thought this cogwheel technology was crazy and couldn't work, and needless to say, he was able to assert himself and get the patent, and then in 1871, after a few years of building the railway, that's when the first trains were chugging up the mountain from Witznau. And it would be no exaggeration to say that this had a formative and sort of revolutionary impact on not only Swiss industrialization and that whole piece, but also just alpine tourism. I mean, when you think of Switzerland, you think of mountain railways, you think of these kind of bucolic and romantic landscapes, and being able to get there and be whisked up there, and that was, Mt Rigi played a huge role in that, so yeah, in 2021, I think, rightfully so, we really want to try to commemorate that and draw people's attention to it. We've already kicked off the celebrations by transporting actually the locomotive number 7, which was one of the initial locomotives, steam locomotives that was built in the late 19th century, and that had been at the Swiss Museum of Transport in Lucerne for almost 100 years. So I mean, it was decommissioned, I think, in the 30s, and then we've leased it now with the gracious support of the Swiss Museum of Transport, and we've actually moved this over to Witznau by barge ship. So this happened in September. It's quite a spectacle. We had great weather, fortunately, and we brought her along the lake on a barge, and now it's being painstakingly repaired so that it can hopefully chug up the mountain again. So the idea really is that we'll have these steam train departures with locomotive number 7. That'll be a massive highlight. We do steam train departures already, but I think the historical resonance and importance of locomotive number 7 will really be exciting for anybody that's a rail enthusiast, and,
sure, absolutely.
and there's no shortage of those people around for sure. And then the actual anniversary weekend is in May, so that the idea behind that is that we're going to do there's going to be a historical carriage parade. So all of the historical carriages that we have, they'll be paraded up the mountain. We'll have different activities and different just music and food stands, and we obviously want to make sure this will need to be scaled up or scaled down in accordance with what the COVID situation allows us to do then. But I think we're quite excited with the warmer weather and hopefully the improving situation that it's going to be great. There's a local there's an open air festival that we're putting on in July. So that's at Rigi Staffel, which is up on the high plateau, and there's normally there's something. Have you heard of Schwingen before? That's like kind of a Swiss wrestling. So you get these big guys that sort of wrestle in sawdust, and it's kind of it's a little bit like kind of like sumo wrestling. So that's something that we do up on Rigi each year anyway. And so we're gonna do things like that. There's going to be folkloric things going on during the anniversary weekend, but also during this open air festival. But then the festival will also have historical reenactments. So there's going to be local actors and musicians that put together a show called Rigi, Queen of the Mountains in July. And so that's actually going to be a kind of an open air theater, if you will. So that'll be it. Imagine going to an open air theater under the moonlight at 1,500 meters, 1,600 meters. So that's
Nice.
That's super exciting as well.
Yeah.
And then kind of this segue between the old and the new. We're going to we've placed an order for brand new carriages that will relieve or supplement the existing rolling stock that we have, and those are going to be delivered in autumn 2021. So even I don't know what those are going to look like. So that's a very kind of secretive, not like surprise that I think everyone's certainly getting very, very excited about is what exactly those train carriages are gonna look like. We want to make sure that it's in keeping with everything that Mt Rigi stands for, but also kind of represents the future of rail travel. So that's so those will be brought into service in late 2021. So yeah, so there's a lot on, and we're super excited about it, and I think it gives us something not only Mt Rigi, but also just the Switzerland and as a whole as a destination. It's garnered a lot of excitement. So we're certainly very excited about it, and really hope that the sort of situation with coronavirus and the pandemic really allows us to just do it. I think is ultimately what it comes down to. We want to be able to really put on a great show.
No, absolutely, and what a great way, if we come out of this pandemic, and then you're able to have this great celebration for 150th anniversary. I mean, it's going to be a spectacular 2021. And the one thing I always love too is to hear, anytime I hear investments into railway, whether it's carriages, new routes, and that's what I love about Switzerland. There's always an investment and a commitment to the railway experience. So the new carriages that are going to be delivered in autumn, I mean, that's outstanding as well. The journey to Mt Rigi, it is really quite easy, right? It's centrally located, and it's particularly spectacular when you can tie in, from Lucerne, where you can tie in the boat ride. Can you talk about the Queen of the Mountains round trip with boat ride out of Lake Lucerne? Because there's people who have the Swiss Travel Pass, and it's all included. So it really sounds like it's like I said, a spectacular way to get to Mt Rigi.
Yeah, I mean, it really is the best day out that you can imagine. I mean, it's this. I think this seamless blend of the lake and the alpine mountain experience is with the Queen of the Mountains round trip is really just unparalleled. Because it's from Lucerne, it's not far to get to Rigi, but because of the kind of contours of the lake, the boat is in fact the quickest way to get there. So some days I might take my car to drive to Witznau. It's essentially the same amount of time and as taking the boat. So I mean, as the crow flies, that's more or less the most direct route that you can take from Lucerne. And our colleagues at the Lake Lucerne Navigation Company have just an amazing fleet of ships. I mean, they have old steamships. They have super kind of modern yachts. The Diamant is one that comes to mind. They're also integrated in the Swiss Travel Pass. So this combination of the sea and the mountain is really amazing, and it just the landscapes around Lucerne. You depart Lucerne and then all of a sudden you get out into the quote unquote open water, and you've got this fjord-like landscape. You've got the perspective of being on the water, and it is a different perspective when you're beholding these mountains from the water. So I think I'll certainly always recommend anybody coming to Mt Rigi to come on at least one of the segments by ship, because it's just gives you such such a cool perspective of the whole sort of alpine landscape and Mt Rigi itself. And then once you get on it at Lucerne, you've got a 50-minute journey to get to Witznau. Witznau is our kind of main hub, and literally you step off the ship and there's probably, I don't know, 100 feet to get from the ship dock to onto the cogwheel train. So I mean, it's so easy. I mean, you can pretty much do it in your sleep, just walk from one to the other. So getting off at Witznau, getting on one of our magnificent cogwheel trains, it's really super easy. And we've when you get on this railway, it's kind of, they always say that these express trains, you hear a lot of these express trains in Switzerland, but they're often not really all that fast. And I think that's the beauty of it. When you get on this cogwheel, they starts to just kind of pull you up, and all of a sudden, it just you're crawling up the side of the Queen of the Mountains, and everything. That it just gives you yet another perspective. Then all of a sudden, you're looking down on the villages below. You start to see the main Alpine ridge open up, and then you see all of the arms of Lake Lucerne unfolding below you. So I think it's really special. And then maybe you're there on a day where it's fog. As I mentioned before, you might have that low level fog, and then you have the anticipation of just pushing through that fog. So that's super special. And yeah, once you're at Rigi Kulm, you've got this. You've almost got the sense of being on an island, because Rigi is surrounded on three sides by water, so it's effectively on this peninsula, and you've got this unrivaled panorama across the main Alpine ridge, all across the Swiss Mittelland, the Jura Mountains, which kind of form the border between Switzerland and France, and then you can, on a clear day, you can even see up to the Vosges Mountain, the Black Forest in Germany. You've got a perspective over 13 different lakes. I mean, it truly will, take your breath away. And then, from there, there's all sorts of course, all the activities that you can do up there. You can take a coffee, you can take a meal, you can walk a little bit, maybe engage in a more involved activity. But, when it's all said and done, you've got a couple different ways that you can go down. You can either take the other cogwheel train down to Art Goldau, to have that different perspective on the going down the north face of Rigi, or you might opt to go down to Kalbad and take the aerial cableway down to Vegas. So Vegas is actually another town on the lake, and then from there, it's a little bit closer to Lucerne. So then you'd have a slightly shorter boat ride back to Lucerne. But I mean, if you were pressed for time, you might be able to do it in 3/4 of a day. But I mean, you might as well just give in to your impulses and go for the full day, because it is a great day out. And I think second to none as far as how to really structure a day which is going to give you a combination of water, mountains, the different perspectives of being on the lake, the bird's eye panorama at the top. I mean, it's really spectacular.
No, it sounds spectacular. I have to tell you, every time I talk to people, about travel, in the current COVID era, I get super anxious, because I'm like, I can't wait to get out there again, right? I mean, everything you described, just to be able to say, okay, I'm just going to get on the boat, and I'm going to take it across the lake, and I'm going to hop on the train, do the cogwheel train. And then when you just said, get to the top and have a coffee, that's really all I want, right? And just like take out the views, and just like, and just, take it all in, all those things that we may have just taken for granted, when it came to travel. And now,
and another thing is kind of like, I didn't mention it, we don't really have, there's no turnstiles, there's no, it's not an orchestrated experience when you come to Mt Rigi, right? So you hop on the train, and then you can decide where it is that you want to hop off, but it's just, it's kind of very just liberating, the whole process, because it's really up to you to decide, okay, where am I going to get on, where am I going to get off? And it's not, there's no queuing as such. I mean, that's kind of a foreign concept for us at Mt Rigi, at least as far as the cogwheel. is concerned, because we can adapt to the capacity that we need just by having different carriages on at the departure. So it really is kind of just a very seamless, very easy experience, and one, which will leave you just wowed in terms of the scenery and the richness of experiences.
Yeah, and if there's anything people need right now, it's that, right? Just that freedom to just go and take it all in. So for
100%.
first-time travelers, do you have any insider tips, recommendations, favorite routes or views that people should consider when they go to visit Mt Rigi?
Yeah, so I think absolutely. I mean, there's so many. It's hard to even know where to start. But I think for a first-time visitor, what I think is a really great option is to take the train all the way up to Rigi Kulm. So take it all the way to the terminus, and from there you've got a few hiking paths or a few walking paths that you can walk around, and it's from there that you really have this 360 degree panorama that I described a few moments ago. And then take a coffee if it's late in the afternoon or early in the afternoon. Take a beer or a glass of wine, and then the downhill walk from there to the penultimate, or the sort of second to last stop at Staffelhöhe is, it might be 20 minutes, even, and that would be at a relaxed pace to Staffel. Sorry, I said Staffelhöhe, I actually meant Staffel. And that's, really something that any person could do. I think any reasonable level of fitness would allow you to do that. Because it's downhill, it's just great, because you've got the water and then sort of drop on one side, not a scary drop, but just this magnificent kind of traverse that you're doing along the western flank of Mount Rigi, and you can just walk downhill, and then you're seeing Lucerne in the town. You can see Pilatus in the distance. You can see the Bernese Alps on a clear day. Then you can stop at there's a great little restaurant there called Bergenus, and that's where you can get Alper Macaronen, which are the Alpine macaroni. There's just great views from there, and you can either hop on the train there at Staffel, or you can continue the walk down to Kalpad. It depends on your level of fitness or how inclined you are to do that, but it's again, it's that high plateau, so you're not talking about massive drops or ascents, and it's just it really is a great experience to do that. And another one which is great is getting off is going to a place called Rigi Kensali. So that is a little panoramic outlook spot that you access from Kalpad. So Kalpad is actually where you take the cable car to if you're coming from Vegas, and it's also one of the intermediate stops that you would get off if you were taking the cogwheel from Witznau to Rigi Kulm. And from there, there's kind of a 45-minute loop you can do, which is not at all that physically demanding. And you sort of loop out to this place called Kensali, and you've just got this amazing view down towards Vegas, all the way across to Lucerne, and sometimes you can even what a lot of local people do is they'll just pack some grilled meats, and there's a grill pit there where they provide wood, and you can just start your own grill and have like just kind of a spontaneous grill experience there, which is amazing. And then from there you can kind of loop up around, and that's another thing about the Swiss Alps, and Rigi's no exception to that. Is just the signposting and the wayfinding is really super clear. So you can do a nice little loop up to Staffelhöhe, or possibly just double back on yourself and go to Kalpad and have something to eat there, or maybe get some ice cream. But yeah, it's very close to Kalpad, which is well known, but yet it's somewhat of an insider tip to go to Kensali. So that is I prefer to take a lot of my first time guests there just for them to see something just a little bit different, So those would be my two major tips for any first timer.
They sound fabulous. They truly fabulous. I'm looking forward to getting there myself in 2021 and being able to do some of those, because it just sounds like an outstanding day to go up there, particularly if you're in Lucerne. It's so simple to do. Johann, thank you for taking your time and sharing your expertise on Mt Rigi and the history and all of your knowledge. It really has been great speaking with you, and really appreciate you sharing all the information.
Well, it was my absolute pleasure, and yeah, as you say, it's just a matter of time before we can get this show on the road, as it were, right? And Todd, I really hope to welcome you in person over here, and to see many of your customers in the near future. And we're all just chomping at the bit to provide those experiences to people, and for everything to open up again.
That concludes this episode of the Rail Insider. Thank you to Johann Fulks for his local insight of Mt Rigi. Check out our maps and images of Mt Rigi and Switzerland at www.vacationsbyrail.com. For specific questions on rail packages around the world, including Switzerland and Mt Rigi, contact a rail specialist at 1-877-929-7245. From everyone at Vacations by Rail, I'm Todd Powell. Thank you for listening.